It took me 3 hours to get to that point, Rosie. That's the scary part about this entire thing is like, if the IRS would just call me back so I can put the phone down and work on what I need to work on and somebody call me back, that's great.
Hello! This is CPA Career Path Podcast with Rosey Flaherty, CPA MSA, where we dive into thrilling journeys in the world of accounting.
Do you remember the worst call during the time you were the representative?
Oh my goodness. There was a taxpayer that had a large tax liability and they wanted some help with abating. But I just want to let you know the person on the other line may not have the authority to give you what you want. And while we try our best, a lot of the decision-making powers of the people answering the calls are flowchart worthy. We go through a questionnaire where we're taking in the answers people give us. It's sometimes not up to the CSR on the other end to pull a bunny out of a hat. I unfortunately was not able to give them what they want. They burst into tears, then called for a supervisor, and then there may have been a threat on my life involved on that call, but obviously I'm still here, so it's all well and good. It's a very emotional job. I mean, there were days where I felt like, what am I doing here?
You were very brave because a lot of time, I'm on the other end, like people call to IRS to talk about the issues, about the notice, about the due, balance due, and why we have this one, help me understand. And sometimes it's just so frustrating to talk to someone from IRS and then he or she has no idea what I'm talking about. And I was like, oh no.
It took me 3 hours to get to that point, Rosie. That's the scary part about this entire thing is like, if the IRS would just call me back so I can put the phone down and work on what I need to work on and somebody call me back, that's great. But remember that doom dial where you call and it's like, sorry, they're at capacity. Please call again later. And you're just like...
And you have to constantly call back. And then unluckily that you get to someone.
It's a little bit of luck. And then you hope the person on the other end understands what you were asking them. But I just want to let you know that the IRS over the last couple of years had tried very, very hard to train folks. And unfortunately, it takes some time for people to be really, really good at their job. And, personally, seeing the folks getting let go with, all the things, it hits right here because, I remember being uncertain about my job. This through no fault of their own. Like, I really feel for folks who have lost their job during this time. And, I just hope that, the situation will stabilize soon.
Yeah, I hear you. And after you decide that you need to leave IRS, you decide to work at Green and Green LLP for about 2 years. And this is the last CPA firm before you start your own practice. So I would love to hear your experience transition from IRS position to this position at Green and Green LLP and what made you decide to leave the firm and then start your own practice.
I had a really, really good education working at Green and Green. My partner was extremely strict, thorough, perfectionist. I don't know. I mean, I know that sounds kind of bad, but I think for where I was career-wise, it was exactly what I needed. That was also the position that allowed me to be forward-facing with clients. Previously when I worked at larger firms, when you're like, tax 1 or tax 2 or whatever it happens to be, you don't really get a chance to talk to like the client too terribly much. Had a really good time working at Green and Green. It was, the first real job where I was very much client facing. Client facing meaning, developing client relationships, getting to know their lives, learning personal details about their kids, their jobs, all that kind of thing. And more importantly, my partner was basically the person who taught me about stock options and stock options optimizing. Living in the San Francisco Bay Area, we have a lot of clientele that work at a lot of the tech startup companies, not only the publicly traded ones, but also a lot of pre-IPO companies. And so I had a lot of exposure on incentive stock options and non-qualified stock options, early exercising, qualified small business stock, all this stuff. This was a little bit, there was also a tiny snippet of crypto, but I think we're maybe getting a little bit ahead in the story here. And I also learned quite a bit about real estate. So there was like 1031 exchanges, there was 704, there was a whole bunch of stuff. As I was kind of feeling my way around, I realized I really enjoyed working with stock options. And I really, really liked, how do we artificially create scenarios to reduce alternative minimum tax, or how do we structure so that somebody is able to exercise and hold and time it so by the time we liquidate, it's time to pay taxes and we're not, under the hole. So it was a really, really fantastic experience. The reason why I parted ways with the firm was I've always felt the need to be entrepreneurial. I've always wanted the idea of running my own business. My partner was really, really kind, but clearly I was on partner track. And that's a commitment that I wasn't entirely mentally ready for, especially since there was a lot of real estate work in the practice and really didn't enjoy doing the real estate work as much as I would have wanted to. She was extremely supportive that I, go out on my own and, see the world. And she was extremely welcoming that if it didn't work out and I wanted to come back, there would be a place. So it was a really, really soft landing as I kind of went to, starting my own firm. And I did that in October of 2013. Oh goodness, that was a long time ago, wasn't it?
Yep. It's about 12 years ago. Yeah, to the October 2013 until now. Wow, look at you.
Still going.
You're doing great. Still going and still going well. That's the thing. It's not just going. So now you built this firm from nothing, from zero up to now where you are. And you have clients across the US, like San Francisco, New York, Austin, Seattle, literally across US. And when you start this firm from the beginning like that, what challenges did you face with at the beginning and how you solve those challenges?
Well, the first one is, how do you pay the mortgage? Sorry to just, basically go on the most lowest level. At the time when I first started my firm, I had literally no clients. And so as I was building my firm for the first 3 years of my firm being around, I worked as a contract per diem preparer for a couple of small firms in San Francisco. And this was really, really helpful because I needed the income, and that's absolutely okay. But on top of that, I was working on other people's tax returns, knowing full well if I did something wrong, somebody up there would fix it. I know that sounds like an absolutely awful thing to say. So I felt like it was the best of both worlds. I built my little tax practice on the side, and I was basically working for these firms. It was, for the first 2 or 3 years, I wasn't able to quite replace my, my income working at Green and Green. But by the time the third year rolled around, I was able to, pay myself enough to, basically lateral. I started hiring contractors because at some point the firm just got bigger and bigger and bigger, and there just wasn't enough time for me to do everything like I was supposed to. So we brought some contractors on board in 2019. And so now my firm runs on, a small team of 3. And, we still bring on seasonal contractors as needed during tax season, but we do have a core team that work for us year round.
3 people. Wow. Doesn't seem to be a lot, but also you also have contractors coming in and out as well during the busy season. So you have a good amount of people to manage for the small firm. Do you feel like that's some challenge that what if you cannot get the contractor during busy season? Do you get panic? How can you solve that issues if you do not have enough people work for you, but you have a lot of work? Do you have to jump in and do it by yourself?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Okay, so the privilege of having your name on the door also means if something goes wrong, nobody's going to fix it for you but yourself. So, in moments of brutal honesty here, there was a year or two where I definitely needed to jump in and work 12-hour days, 7 days a week for a couple of weeks. But I'm extremely blessed that our firm is structured a little bit different now in 2025 compared to how it was structured back in 18 or 19. We have significantly reduced the number of clients we service, and the nature of our clients are technically, pretty much some technically complicated returns. And a lot of them rely on K1s. And sometimes K1s aren't ready until the summertime. And we bank on that so that we don't have to try to push all the tax returns out the door. And I can see Rosey smiling here because she understands. Nobody in their right mind can get everything done by April 15th. It's
no.
No.
April 15th, no.
Right. If we ran a volume churn mill and all we did were W-2s and a couple of 1099s, yes, you could process hundreds, if not thousands of returns in 8 weeks and you could be all right. But that's not exactly our business model. And so while this last tax season, there were a couple of days that I worked pretty late at night, my role has definitely stepped back. I am not so much involved in does this number belong on this box on this tax return? Rather, I am looking to be a resource for my team. Hey, there's this complicated tax situation. It didn't happen last year. Minnie, what's the best way for us to troubleshoot this? So I'm definitely more of a troubleshooter rather than somebody that's going to roll her sleeves up and do it. I mean, don't get me wrong. They're still rolling sleeves up and doing it. I feel like, I still haven't left the part where I'm still signing tax returns. Therefore, I am intimately familiar with my client's situation. Will I get to a point where I stop signing tax returns? One day. I think so. But is it going to be today? No, ma'am. Not even close.
And so it seems that you just share with me and the audience about some challenges that I did ask at the beginning and some cons when you go and run the firm by yourself, that you are the one who will be responsible for everything pretty much for your firm. Now, the pros, can you share with us some pros that when you go out and do your own, what benefits or what advantage that you have?
You can call this a dual-edged sword, but being out on your own means you get to control the client relationship. Now, for folks that work for somebody else, do you ever remember there's this client that every time you see their email pop up, you feel a sense of dread? Like you just don't want to work on it. You want nothing to do with this. You would be extremely ecstatic if you never see that again. if you own your firm and you have enough revenue to replace it, you could end that relationship. So that's absolutely a pro. I know that sounds like, it's like, Minnie, that was not what I was going for. Another thing is flexibility. I have two small boys. They are now 6 and 8. Yes, I work a lot during the months of February, March, and April, managing my team, making sure tax returns go out. But we're in May now, and I can comfortably have a 24-hour week or a 32-hour week. And I am taking this year about 11 weeks of vacation. And I'm going to be honest with you, no firm I work for would be willing to tolerate me spacing out for 11 weeks out of the year. Now, to be fair, I do check my email every day, even when I'm on vacation. But there's I looked at it, and then I can either reply really quick, delegate it to somebody else, or just say, you know what, I'm on vacation. I'll get back to it in about 3.5 weeks. So being able to control my schedule and being able to change the focus of the firm. I started out being a generalist. We needed, revenue, Again, the mortgage needs, to be addressed somehow. But as we built our firm with the clientele we like, doing the work we love, as we bring on the right type of work, we can start disengaging the work that is not in our wheelhouse, which, actually helps a lot keeping up the quality of our firm when you don't need to research 8 or 9 different things. I don't need to learn about, realtors and, real estate professional, status, or I'm not really looking into doing work for nonprofits or farms. I'm not going into, construction accounting. I'm not doing government. I'm not doing a test. Well, CPE gets to be a lot more specific and fun.
Yep. I agree with you about that. 12 weeks vacation per year? That sounds pretty cool.
Nice. And I also get to choose where I go do CPE. So I remember I saw you at Engage previously, so that's a fun place to go. And I get to do CPE in Hawaii. I get to do CPE in a bunch of other places. So you get a little bit more flexibility and try to make it a workation.
Is that Western CPEs in Hawaii?
Yes. I went. It was in Kauai. It was absolutely lovely. You start at 7:30 in the morning. You end at 1:00, and then you go swim with the turtles by 3. It was great.
Yeah, because we just talk. We have mass CPAs, Women's Trusted Circle. Then we talk about Western CPs, and then they're talking about who would like to join. It's going to be in Hawaii. You have different time during the year. Could be summer, could be November. And then you can have classes, CPEs from Monday to Thursday. You pick how many CPEs you want. But literally just in the morning, and then the afternoon you can enjoy Hawaii. I was like, that sounds really cool. Who could think about having CPEs in Hawaii?
Highly encourage it. Highly encourage it.
Well, let's see if you work for CPEs, if you work for CPA firms, see if they pay for all those expenses. But if you work by yourself, you don't need to get approval.
Yet another flexibility in life decisions, right?
Yeah, I know, right? I know. You mentioned about boys being a mom. And so I know that a lot of times the challenge that people face with like, oh my God, how can I balance the mom life and the work life when I do all this by myself and I don't have anyone else to just take care of this when I take maternity leave. So I was wondering if you feel comfortable to share about your maternity leave or when you have a newborn baby at the same time managing your own firm. I know it was challenging.
Okay, so my youngest, Isaac, was born in the middle of May. And so, as you know, Q2 happens in early June. And this was a period in time in, this was happening around 2019, and there was a lot of IPOs and specs and all that kind of stuff. So it was really, really important that I was calculating quarterly estimates. It's my name on the door. So 2 weeks after I gave birth, I was back in the chair, and my brain was not entirely functional. And I forced myself to work as much as I could, and I did just enough to get through. And then immediately after the 15th was over, I was back in maternity mode from June 15th back to around like mid-August. Then I worked from mid-August to around October 15th. And as soon as October 15th was over, I was mentally checked out again from October 15th to November 30th. And then afterwards, we were doing a bunch of year-end planning. So if I worked for another firm, I would have had a proper maternity leave. But I don't regret it because I brought a nanny in. I was lucky enough to be able to afford a nanny while I was doing this. And then, pandemic happened and, all that kind of fun stuff. And that led to a completely different set of problems on its own. Hey, Rosie, I need to let you know I do have a hard stop at 1. So I just wanted to kind of let you know that.
Okay. Let me just wrap it up real quick. So we talk a lot about your CPA journey. Before we finish this discussion, I was wondering if you can share some last 3 tips and advice to the audience who wants to strive to be better in this profession.
Oh, goodness. So many things to say, so little time. I would say that please, we are not as streamlined as everybody says we are. I have switched over a number of different roles. A lot of my role models have also switched over a number of roles. It's not as simple as choosing audit or choosing tax. That's just one path out of many, many different paths. And, if you are looking for an alternative lifestyle, besides Big Four, which we all love Big Four, there are other people like me out there. The mom and pop shops are, going away slowly because there's just not enough CPAs coming up the pipeline to take over these firms. The opportunity is vast. Yes, we work hard, but once we ramp up, it's a very lovely life.
Awesome. Thank you so much for the interview today. And I will appreciate all your tips and advice and also your experience that you share about the journey.
Thank you so very much. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.